The Psychology of Money. Part 2, Common Biases, the Traps We Fall Into. Episode 5, The Unchanged Bank Account, Why We Stay Stuck. Welcome back, English language learners. Today, we find our friend Leo in the familiar surroundings of a Cali park, but his mind is focused on something less pleasant than the sunny weather: bank fees. Like many of us, Leo has an old, familiar bank account, but it's starting to cost him money. Have you ever stayed with something simply because it's what you're used to, even if it's not the best option? Join us as Leo talks with the wise Ms. Reed and discovers a common mental trap that keeps us stuck in our old ways, even when a change could save us money and stress. Get ready to listen and learn about the power of the status quo bias and how it might be affecting your own decisions. The warm Cali sun dappled through the leaves of the trees in the park, painting shifting patterns on the ground. Leo sat on his usual bench, a slightly worried frown creasing his forehead as he looked at his phone. He was supposed to be studying his English vocabulary, but instead, he was staring at a notification from his bank. Another fee, he muttered under his breath, switching to the details. Account maintenance fee, again? But I hardly use this account anymore. He'd had this bank account since he was a teenager, opened with the help of his grandmother. It felt familiar, like an old, comfortable pair of shoes. But lately, these comfortable shoes were starting to pinch. The fees were becoming more frequent and the interest he earned was practically zero. "This is ridiculous," he said a little louder, startling a nearby pigeon. He knew, deep down, that he should probably look for a new bank, one with better conditions and fewer charges. His friend Mateo had even told him about a credit union where he had an account with no monthly fees and a decent interest rate. But the thought of switching felt overwhelming. He imagined the paperwork, the online forms, the hassle of updating all his automatic payments. "It's probably not worth the effort," he told himself. "It's just a few thousand pesos every month. I can manage." Just then he heard a gentle voice. "Something troubling you, Leo?" He looked up and saw Ms. Reed approaching, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. As she smiled, she carried her small gardening tools ready to tend to her patch of vibrant flowers. "Oh, Ms. Reed," Leo said, forcing a smile. "Just bank stuff. More fees." Ms. Reed sat down on the bench beside him, placing her tools neatly at her feet. "Ah, the joys of banking. Tell me about it." Leo explained his situation, how he'd had the account for years, how the fees were increasing, and how he knew he should probably switch to a better option. Ms. Reed listened patiently, nodding occasionally. When he finished, she said thoughtfully, "It sounds like you're experiencing something very common, Leo. It's called the status quo bias." Leo frowned, trying to pronounce the unfamiliar words in his head. Status quo bias? What does that mean? "Well," Ms. Reed explained, her voice calm and clear, "it's our tendency to prefer things to stay the same. We have a natural inclination to stick with our current situation, even if a change might be better for us. Think of it like this: you're used to this bank, even with the fees. Changing to a new one feels like a big step into the unknown, even if that unknown is likely much better." Leo considered this. "So, I'm staying with this bad bank just because it's what I'm used to?" "Exactly," Ms. Reed said. "It's the power of sticking with what we know. We often weigh the potential downsides of change more heavily than the potential benefits. Even if the downsides of staying put are actually greater. But, it's costing me money every month," Leo exclaimed, feeling a bit foolish. "I know," Ms. Reed said gently. That's the cost of inaction. By not doing anything, by not switching banks, you are essentially choosing to pay those fees. It might feel like the easier option in the short term, but over time, those small fees can really add up. She picked up a fallen leaf and examined its intricate veins. Think about your English studies, Leo. Imagine you were using an old, outdated textbook that made learning much harder. You know there are better books available, but you keep using the old one because you're used to it. You've already written in it. You know where everything is, even if it's not the most effective way to learn. Staying with the old book is the status quo. The cost of inaction is that your English progress is slower than it could be. Leo's eyes widened. The analogy made perfect sense. He had been hesitant to switch to the new grammar book Prof. Jaimi recommended, even though his current one was confusing. So, why change becomes the default answer, even when change is the logical thing to do? He asked. Precisely. Ms. Reed smiled that little question. Why change can be very powerful. It often stops us from considering the potential benefits of doing things differently. We focus on the effort involved in changing the small inconveniences, and we forget about the long-term advantages. She pointed to a vibrant flower that had just bloomed. Look at this flower, Leo. It started as a small bud. If it had thought, why change? I'm comfortable as a bud, it would never have opened up to the beauty of the sun and the world. Sometimes, we need to embrace a little change to blossom. Leo chuckled softly. Ms. Reed always had a way of making even financial matters sound like lessons from nature. So, what can I do about the status quo bias with my bank? He asked. The first step is awareness, which you've already taken, Ms. Reed said. You recognize that you're staying with your current bank out of habit, not because it's the best option. The next step is to actively consider the alternatives. Like Mateo's credit union, Leo said. Exactly. Do some research. Find out what other banks in Cali offer. Compare their fees, their interest rates, their services. Don't just think about the effort of switching, think about the long-term benefits of having more of your money stay in your pocket. Ms. Reed picked up her small trowel and began gently loosening the soil around one of her plants. Sometimes, we overestimate the difficulty of change. Opening a new bank account might seem like a huge task, but often, banks make the process quite straightforward. They want your business. I guess I've just been avoiding looking into it, Leo admitted. It feels like one more thing to do. I understand, Ms. Reed said sympathetically. Life can feel busy. But think about it this way, every month you don't switch, you're essentially paying a small inaction tax. It's a cost you're choosing to bear by not taking a simple step. She paused her gardening and looked at Leo intently. Ask yourself, Leo, what is the real cost of staying with this bank? Is the effort of switching greater than the amount of money you'll lose in fees over the next year, or 2 years, or even 5 years? Leo pulled out his notebook and started to do some quick calculations. The monthly fees weren't huge, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 pesos each time, but they seemed to be happening every couple of months. Over a year, that could easily add up to 30,000 or 40,000 pesos, money he could use for his textbook or save for his future. Wow, he said, surprised. It's more than I thought. That's often the case, Ms. Reed said. The small, repeated costs of inaction can be surprisingly significant over time. We tend to focus on the immediate discomfort of change and underestimate the long-term pain of staying stuck. She pointed to another flower, this one of vibrant purple. Imagine this flower was stuck in a small pot. It's comfortable there, it has enough soil to survive. But if you move it to a bigger pot with more nutrients, it has the potential to grow much larger and produce even more beautiful flowers. Sometimes, we need to change our pot to allow ourselves to flourish financially. Leo felt a sense of clarity washing over him. Ms. Reed was right. He had been letting his fear of the unknown and his comfort with the familiar cost him money. It wasn't a rational decision, it was the status quo bias at play. Okay, he said, a newfound determination in his voice. I'm going to do it. I'm going to look into Mateo's credit union, and I'll research other banks too. Ms. Reed smiled warmly. That's wonderful, Leo. Remember, change doesn't have to be scary. Sometimes, it's the best way to move forward. And think of all the English vocabulary you'll learn in the process, fees, switching, you're already using them. Leo grinned. He hadn't thought about it that way. You're right. And I'll finally understand all those complicated banking terms. Exactly, Ms. Reed said, returning to her gardening. Don't let the comfort of the familiar hold you back from something better. Don't let the why change question prevent you from saving money and reaching your financial goals. Leo watched her gently tending to her flowers, each one vibrant and thriving. He thought about his own financial life. He didn't want to be like a plant stuck in a small pot, just surviving. He wanted to grow and flourish. He pulled out his phone again, this time not to look at the dreaded bank notification, but to search for credit unions in Cali. The initial feeling of overwhelm was still there, but it was now mixed with a sense of excitement and possibility. He was finally taking action, breaking free from the inertia of the status quo. He was choosing to change, and he knew, deep down, it was the right decision. The cost of inaction had become too clear, and he was ready to embrace the potential of a new beginning. We hope you enjoyed today's story and that it helped you practice your English listening skills. If you did, please give this video a like. And if you want to hear more stories and lessons to improve your English, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.